Hello, this is Megan.
And this is Mark.
Welcome to our 9th video of the Star Wars Land construction at Disneyland.
And we'll also talk about the area that needs to be modified to make room for Star Wars Land, such as the rerouting of the Disneyland Railroad, Rivers of America, and Big Thunder Trail.
May the 4th be with you.
First of all, where the building the Battle Escape show building, workers are adding concrete to create columns. And here's what it looked like 2 weeks ago. Notice that tube forms are surrounding rebar to create the columns. Now I'll dissolve the picture back to what it looks like today. Here we can see a worker bring in a hose end of a concrete boom pump to fill another column. And there it goes. The concrete is entering the tube form to create the concrete column. If we focus our attention to the left a little bit, we can see that a beam is being lifted by the crawler crane. Now it's being lowered. Notice that there's a slight curvature to this beam. Over here we can see that workers are laying out floor decking. The worker on the right is using a power cutter to cut the end of the steel decking. Now a crane is lifting a steel structure. It appears to be a column base. It's being lowered into position. Notice that the worker on the left is bringing rebar to the column base. Next, temporary support bracing is put in place to keep the column base stationary. Alright, now the crane hook is disconnected. If we look over to the Critter Country entrance area, we can see that railroad ties have been added to the top of the tunnel entrance. Next, we'll go into Critter Country to observe the progress from that perspective. Here we are peeking through the fence, and notice that the rocks near the center of the picture have been elevated. This is done so the top of the rocks will be at the surface of the water once the water is added. Also, notice under the bridge, forms have been added. It appears that these forms will create a stack of support logs for the bridge. Now, if we slide to the right, workers are adding metal rods to the end of what will possibly be a fallen tree, but it's hard to tell at this point. And there they are, welding it into place. It looks like these rods are going to be a tapered end of a branch-like structure. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. If we look up a little bit, a worker is adding more paint to the rock structures. Next, we'll peek through the fence on Big Thunder Trail. Here we can see that framework and rebar have been added to where the walking path will be.
Today's May 13th, 2017.
A lot of activities happening today, and if we slide to the left, we can see that a new crawler crane has been brought in. This second crane is being used for the Millennium Falcon show building. We'll go ahead and get a different angle so we can see it better. Alright, here we can see that the Millennium Falcon show building is starting to go vertical. A beam is being lowered into position. Now that the beam is in position, the crane cable is detached from the beam. Now another beam is being lowered. This is a diagonal beam used for cross bracing. Since we're located in an earthquake zone, this type of beam will help make the building sturdier and will be more likely to withstand lateral forces. As these workers continue to put this beam in position, the worker on the far right of the picture is welding a side railing together. Next, if we look to the left side of the Millennium Falcon show building, we can see that the concrete forms have been removed. We can now clearly see the cylindrical concrete wall structures that have been made. We'll go ahead to the street level to see these wall structures closer up. We have a good view of one of the cylindrical concrete structures, and directly behind this structure are the newly added steel beams. Next, if we look to the right, a steel ladder is being lifted over the Battle Escape show building. We don't know if Battle Escape is the official name for the attraction, but as time goes on, we'll find out. The ladder is being lowered into the show building's basement. At the top of the Battle Escape show building, a beam structure is being lowered. It's possible that this structure will be used for utility support or air handler support. Next, we'll go into critter country. We are over by Splash Mountain, and if we look up, we can see that water has been added to the other side of the dam. We'll view the other side of the dam to get a different perspective. From this perspective, we have a good angle of the added water to the construction area. And since the water has been added, a crane has been brought in to remove the dam. Also notice that the crane is located on a deck barge to make removing the dam easier. Next, we'll peek through the fence behind us. Concrete forms have been set up to what appears to be for creating a terrace landscape. Now we're on Big Thunder Trail, and we'll go ahead and peek over the fence. Here we can see that concrete has been added to the walking path.
Today is May 17th, 2017.
We're located at Mickey's Toontown Train Depot, and if we look down at the railroad track, we can see a new portion of the track has been attached to the original track. Here's what it looked like before the new track was added, and I'll dissolve the picture back to what it looks like today. The railroad track consists of rails, fasteners, wooden railroad ties, and ballast. Ballast is made of crushed stone. Here's a good view of the newly added track, and there's a smell of creosote in the air, which is the most common preservative for wooden ties to prevent rot. Next, we'll go on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad to see if the track has been laid out on the other side of the tunnel. Here we can see that the track has been laid out, although this portion of the track, the ballast, hasn't been added yet. Now we're on Big Thunder Trail, and if we look to the left, we can see that more of the trail has been blocked off. We'll go and peek on the other side of the fence to see what we can see. There's a crane and some working supplies. It looks like they're using this part of the trail as a staging area. Here at Rivers of America, we can see that the dam has been removed. Located near the top of the rock formations, a worker is adding more color to the rocks. If we zoom out a little bit, we can see that concrete forms have been removed. Now we can clearly see the concrete walls to make the terrace landscaping. Over where the fallen branches will be, we can see that more wire is extending out of the body frame of the branches. And if we look to the right, an Imagineer is adding a coating to the wire to make it look like branches extending out. I believe this is the same Imagineer that we saw on Big Thunder Trail, adding detail to the wood plank wall and the shingles on the shed. Here's a track loader bringing in some dirt to fill in the space behind the concrete wall. Next, I'll zoom out a little bit to get a different angle. Alright, so if we look closely, we can see where the keelboat is docked, just around the riverbank. Behind the keelboat, we can see the bridge. It's interesting that no rocks have been placed underneath the bridge on the right side. Wonder if this will be the location to allow access to the phantasmic storage. We're at the parking structure looking at workers on scissor lifts. They're installing rebar adjacent to the concrete forms. Now if we look at the top of the Battle Escape Show building, we can see that wire mesh has been put in place. They're getting the area ready to add concrete. If we look at the middle level, it is amazing all the different types of beams that have been installed. Quite a variety. And here they are lowering one of the beams into position. Now if we focus our attention on the first level, notice that there is more columns in place. This is the area where we observed the column footings back in January 2017. And here's what it looked like back in January. We can see the concrete footings and piers. As mentioned back in part 5, the purpose of a footing is to support the foundation and prevent settling. And the concrete block that's on top of the footing is called a pier, which connects to the column base. Alright, now we'll go back to what it looks like today. If you look closely from this example, you can see the top of the pier connected to the column base. Now looking at the Millennium Falcon show building location, a crane is lifting a bag filled with dirt over an inner portion of a cylindrical structure. The workers are opening the bottom of the bag to add the dirt. Next, a crane is lifting floor decking to the top of the Millennium Falcon show building.
Today is May 20th, 2017.
We'll go ahead and take a ride on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Here we are coming out of the cavern, and we'll look to the left. If we pause the picture right here, we can see that more trees have been added. The trees are now blocking, unfortunately, our view of the bridge. We'll move on and pause the picture once again. We can see that a log has been brought in at the edge of the water. I wonder if this is the same log that was in a different location before the construction began. Here's a picture of the log before the construction at the edge of the river with a dog and an Indian. Now we'll go back to today. Also from this shot, we can view the cabin on Tom Sawyer Island. It's been painted dark brown since we saw it last. We'll move on once again. If we look at the railroad tracks, ballast has been packed between, below, and around the ties. Ballast is used to bear the load from the railroad ties, to facilitate drainage of water, and also to keep down vegetation that might interfere with the track structure. At the battle escape location, a cage is being lifted to the top level. Now the cage is being lowered. Workers are now taking out what appears to be ducts for the HVAC system. The ducts are used for air conditioning, heating, or ventilating a building. The workers are using dollies to bring the pieces to one side of the building to store them until they're ready to be installed. Alright, all the pieces have been removed from the cage, and now the empty cage is being lifted.
Today's May 27, 2017.
First we'll ride Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. We're coming out of the cavern, and looking at the log at the edge of the water, we can see two items that have been placed on top of the log. I'll go ahead and zoom in. These two items could be animatronics that are wrapped in storage material. It is possible that it's the Indian and the dog that were on the log before the construction began. We'll go back to the picture before the construction. They definitely do look like the same, but we will see. Alright, we're in Critter Country. The sides of the truss bridge have been put in position. That really looks nice. Peeking through the fence, we can see that more of the coating has been put onto the fallen tree branches. Now we're looking at the other side of the bridge from the Mickey and Friends parking structure. Here's what it looked like about a week ago, and I'll dissolve the picture back to what it looks like today. Next, we'll slide to the left. From here, we can see that more concrete forms have been added. These forms are the second layer to make up the wall. And between the two layers is the rebar that we saw being installed last week. And as we know, concrete will eventually be added between the two layers of forms. Also to the right, there are more concrete forms in position. Notice above these forms are column rebar. I'll go ahead and zoom in. At the top of the Battle Escape Show building, concrete has been added to the wire mesh. If we look at the side of the building, we can see that metal studs have been added. These studs are vertical framing of the walls. They are for holding in place the siding, insulation, utilities, and help give shape to the building. Also from this perspective, we can see that a white coating has been added to some of the beams. This coating is used to help the beams become more resistant to fire, and this fireproofing is a plaster-like material made up of minerals that is resistant to heat. Next, we'll slide to the left and look at the progress at the Millennium Falcon Show building. More steel framework has been added, and if we look closely, we can see that a temporary elevator mechanism has been installed. Well, that's a taste of things to come.
We can't wait to see what they build next.